Hello, once again, welcome to Hollywood Breaks. It's good to be with you on this Friday morning. There's a lot of stuff happening at the end of the year, and we can't wait to get to it. But before we do that, we have to welcome our favorite, most dynamic executive there is behind the scenes, Keith Rouse, and our most favorite guest that we are going to ask to be permanent if we can get her here, Robin Geisen. Welcome, guys, to Hollywood Breaks.
Hi, great to be back as always.
It is. Thank you for having me.
Robin, now this is your second time on. Are you less nervous? Because you know we are actually a couple of good guys. We're not doing too much harm.
Yeah, I know what to expect a little bit more this time. So, yeah, less nervous.
She was scared. She was scared of you before, Tim.
I think you should be nervous because we're going to go deeper. We got you comfortable. We're really going to make sure we find out.
Now we're going to pull the secrets out of you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. We can't go too far without pulling out this water for elephants poster that's going on behind Keith.
Random poster of the week goes to water for elephants.
That's
so
good.
I know there's an inside scoop here because both of you worked on this film, right?
Yes. So this is obviously a poster, the one she designed by The Refinery.
I love The Refinery. Those are my
great company.
My guys.
Yes.
Yep.
You're Tim's familiar with them.
Yep.
But anyway, I had a thought, and also because we're coming on. This is the last episode of 2020. I figured it would behoove us to end on a high note with something other than a brooding superhero or some dark monster and a dark black poster. And this is really the only one I have that's not that. So that's why I put it up. And also I thought this was the first movie that Robin and I kind of officially worked on together, but Robin told me I was dead wrong. That there were several films prior to that we worked on that I have old man memory and I didn't remember, Ramona and Bezus and all the other films that we worked on together. But anyway.
There's little nuances of stuff that we did, but that was one that we were probably more involved with. So
anyone who loves the trailer, Robin reminded us that she was the one who picked that song. So
Robin, what did you do on this film?
Robin, what did you do on it? I know what I did. What did you do on this one?
I don't even know what I did. No, I just sent the song. I loved the song Cosmic Love, Florence and the Machine, and I sent it to Eli Arias, who was cutting as an idea. And he used it, and it turned out really well. And Peter Stugard actually did that special shoot for the poster that you're looking at, which I ended up.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's cool.
I totally forgot about that. That's right.
And I did a special shoot for our, because I helped design the book cover, and that was what we ended up using for the book cover.
So the special shoot means
working on the strategy and all kinds of other stuff too.
Special shoot meetings, you grabbed the talent, you went to a photography studio, and you just shot still for promotion, opposed to doing a grab from the feature or something like that, right?
Right. Well, typically what you do is during the shoot itself, you actually try to schedule, doesn't always work out this way. You try to schedule time in the shoot schedule to pull the talent aside to do something like this.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if you actually do it while they're in character, you get iconic footage. Like Walk the Line, for example, that was all shot on set with Reese and Joaquin because they were in character. And that's how you got some of those iconic black and white shots that were used in the one sheet and what have you. And it really helps you really get your best stuff when they're on set, because you have to call them back and get them into character again. 9 times out of 10, they're missed because they have to come back.
Yeah.
And depending on the level of talent involved, you also have to get major approvals for the shoot. They have to see the concept. But sometimes when you shoot on set, they're a little bit more willing to play around with it, so give you more freedom in terms of the concepts. You do have to have like comps with you to sort of give them a sense of what it's going to look like. But
you guys sound like you've had the most glamorous jobs on the planet, where you get to sit around and drink. You don't have to be on set.
Oh, I wish.
Time comes, you jump on set, you eat some red vines, and you get these special shoots going on with the talent. It's
I mean,
stories.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely perks. I'm not gonna lie, there are perks to working in the business for sure. But the day-to-day can sometimes, like, this sounds like great, but trying to pull this off is one headache after another, because there's so many people that have to be aligned and getting
Sure.
all the approvals, and it's just a lot of work to make it
Peter
happen.
Stugard at the time, he was like a one-man team. I swear to God, he was magic. He was the magic man. He made so much stuff happen. He was doing so much of it alone.
He could translate Tony Sella vision into an actual executionable idea.
Yeah. Peter was
easy.
I remember thinking, and I was really young, and I remember looking him and going, oh, that's a hard worker. And I still go back and look back at like the people that I've met through my career, and Peter Stugard is still at the top of people who work hard. And the guy would be running through the halls almost on a daily basis. And he was doing it all alone. And that, like, this poster is all Peter. He was brilliant.
That's awesome. I love the idea of an executive running through the halls trying to get something done. But there is so many great.
It happened a lot at Fox.
And if you don't put the effort into it, you don't get the best work, right? I think
especially on Wednesday mornings, and that's definitely when it happened a lot, because that's when we had our big meetings with Tom Rossman and Jim Giannopoulos, chairman at the time, and we were showing them all the materials. So Tom you'd show him the latest cut, and he'd typically be like, no, I like the way you did the other way. Let me see the previous cut. So we'd have to run upstairs. And at the time, we were still using 3/4-inch tapes, because Tony loved the 3/4-inch tape, because you could toggle back and forth frame by frame, whereas the DVDs, you can't do that. So we were still using 3/4-inch tapes at the time. And when Sony stopped making them, we would buy all the sort of the product that was in town, because we were really the only studio that was still using them. So 3/4-inch players were old. So we buy up old 3/4-inch players, so we had spare parts. Every vendor kept a 3/4-inch player just because of us. Because we
we at Trailer Park had the 3/4-inch.
Because of us. Yeah. That was because of us. That's because Tony would only use 3/4.
Those kids who don't know what we're talking about.
I wish I had one.
Back in the day, video used to be on a tape, and you would put the tape into a mechanical machine, and the mechanics paid them. All right, let's get into some of because beyond 3/4-inch tapes changing in our industry, lots have changed in our industry. Even in just the last 7 days, the world has changed. I feel like every day seems to be something else. I thought it'd be kind of fun just to take this episode and almost think about like a retrospective for the entire year. Really, we've captured about half the years and the changes that are going on in the last half of this year. And I'll just say personally, if we weren't doing this weekly, I don't think I could keep up with all of the changes that are taking place, because so much happens in a 7-day period over last year. So it just seems like some big items, especially Robin, with you on board. I know that you're working with talent, you work with studios, you work in marketing. There's so many great things that you've seen and changes you've seen. And I kind of want to dig into what those changes are. And if I'm looking for anything, I'm looking for that nugget that the people that want to know what's going on behind the scenes, what can they know and their takeaways, so that they can advance in their career or some kind of creative background. Number one, I think we have to address, if this is the biggest thing that's happening this year, is streaming. The streaming world is now everything from almost zero to 100 million for Disney in just over a year period.
Yeah,
Netflix obviously is killing it. It's changing the way we're viewing movies. And I'll say, sadly, I got my refund from Cinemark Theaters because I had booked a private screening to watch Elf with my family, and they can't open up. So they had to give me my money back instead of us going to see this thing. So streaming is just where everybody's living right now. Robin, let's talk with you. Streaming, what is the first thing when I talk about that you think of when you think about the changes that streaming is bringing to our industry?
Look, I think that's a big, broad question. For me, it's streaming. The first word that comes to mind is opportunity. It's just another distribution outlet. And I think that we need to, look, I think it was inevitable that it was going to get here. I think COVID escalated that tenfold, because it had to. There were no other options, and there were no other distribution outlets that we were allowed to partake in. So it made streaming the number one place to be. because we had to stay in our homes, and still do. We're still, we're in Los Angeles, or I'm in Los Angeles, and we're still under a stay-at-home order. Like, restaurants are closed again for another wave, and where it's takeout and delivery only. And so movie theaters are not open. The only thing we can do is stay home on a Friday night and watch Netflix, right? Or watch Disney Plus. And so, I think with that, there comes opportunity for more content and more projects. But I do think it poses challenges for the old model of theatrical, which I think we know that now, and we're seeing that happening now. But, I don't think, for me, I don't think that theaters have to cease to exist in order for streaming to exist. I think that they can coexist. And it's about learning how, both of them can, and how, what projects are best to go there, whether it's changing the pricing models, to changing the types of movies that end up going to that distribution outlet, or all of it. There's so much to unpack here. And the structuring of deals, like, I think all of it's going to change. So I think the first thing you think of is uncertainty,
Yeah. But I love the idea of like opportunity. So uncertainty also brings opportunity, doesn't it? And I like the idea of opportunity, where really in the streaming world, a lot of the old gatekeepers are also moving on and changing. And some of the difficulty, because distribution is actually a logistics issue. Like, it's a lot of work to get distribution in place, exhibitors on board, all that kind of stuff. Streaming, there's a smaller critical mass to get something to a larger field, especially 80 something million viewers. Keith, you and I've been covering this for almost from the beginning. It feels like one of the first things we had to address was really what streaming services were going to do and impact. When you think about what the impact's going to be in just like qualifying films and something like the Oscars, or how we're going to look back on, are these legitimate movies and real movies in a way? Like, how are we going to, in our mind, put the classics together with the ones that are today?
I mean, I think I agree with Robin that it definitely is. There's opportunity for sure, and that's something we've talked about for the last few weeks. About more content means more places for content, means more need for content, more opportunities for creators and the makers of the great stories that we all know and love. But I do think the challenges of the future are going to be like, what constitutes a movie now? Because streaming can be so much done in home now, on a TV screen, it's basically become like a TV movie. Now, obviously the quality is going to be better for sure, because the money is going to be bigger. I'm not saying like a Lifetime movie is going to be the same as a Universal movie or whatever, the Warner Brothers movies that are going on HBOMax are going to be the same quality as like a CBS movie of the week kind of thing. But what makes a movie now? Like, that's sort of the bigger conversation. Now, Steven Spielberg, God love him, tried to make this point when the Academy was debating whether or not to let Netflix movies be nominated for Oscars. He made it for like a half a second until he realized that he was going to be cut off his nose to spite his face. It was going to cut him off from the revenue stream and all the money that Netflix throws at creators and the freedom they give them. But at the same time, I appreciate the fact that he was trying to protect what makes a movie a movie. What makes Jaws, what makes Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I think all of us on this call have been very fortunate that we grew up when we did, because we all have those iconic movies that we saw in the theater, and we remember those iconic movies in the theater. And this generation, I don't think is going to have that. And I know they're going to have the Oscars in April. What I would love to see, even though most of the movies that are going to run are going to have played on Netflix, and which is horribly ironic. Now, granted, some of they're going to have like a week in the theater somewhere. So they're going to be released in some podunk theater,
But I think Netflix played that game last with Irishman, and they just bought out the theaters and played there.
And they just ran it for 2 weeks. I would love to see the Academy do some sort of like, this is why we love movies. This is why movies are great. This is why when the theaters open, we all want to go back to the theater, because it's such a communal experience. And I know I've argued that if they expect people to just walk in and the experience is still the same, they're going to be for a rude awakening. But I think despite that, I still think there needs to be some sort of cultural campaign driven by the film business saying like, because I do think a lot of them have dropped the ball through this whole period and just gone silent and haven't talked at all about the industry and how important it is, and how much of what going to the theaters is such a cultural experience for us as human beings.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that can't be forgotten as we sort of look at sort of what 2020 has done to the industry as a whole, and think about ways that we can still celebrate the idea of going to the movies. While I agree, Robin, that it is an opportunity, I think the other side of it is we also have to remember that we have to try to protect what going to the movies and an actual movie means now. And we have to protect that even more.
The money currently is in the streamers.
Yeah.
So who has the finances now to invest the streaming forward, where the exhibitors and even the investment of the studios aren't necessarily in the idea of exhibition in the old way. So that shift just financially is going to kind of make that difference take place. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that there's something, and I've been thinking a lot about it too, and I know everybody has, and it's like, one of the things that I keep finding when you say like we have to protect the theatrical model, right? We do have to protect the theatrical model. But here's what I will say to it. The theatrical model, and this is where I think that we're getting stuck in how do we protect it? How best do we protect this model? And so because of that, we're becoming allergic to doing anything that is evolving or anything that involves change, because we're scared that it will get rid of it completely and it will eradicate theater going. And I think we need to reevaluate all of it and go back to start, like, for some reason, and I don't know if because this isn't the consumer as much, I don't think, as it is the actual marketers and the people in the entertainment industry who are defining this. But for some reason, a theatrical release is more valuable than a VOD release or a streaming release. And it's actually, if you look at the past couple of years, Marriage Story was nominated for Academy Awards. Irishman was nominated for Academy Awards. One of the best shows right now ever is The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. It's fantastic. It has like re-energized the Star Wars franchise and brought in all of the old fans and also bringing in new fans. You look at Netflix has the best documentaries out there, like arguably, towards people. One of my favorite movies I've seen this year is a movie that was always at Amazon. It's The Sound of Metal. It's so beautiful. Like there's so I think we need to come back to that definition and like changing the perception, because that's not really what I think consumers think, like you look at Cobra Kai too, by the way, amazing.
Yeah, pretty fun.
That started on YouTube.
Yeah.
So like to talk about what means value, like I think we need to start fresh again and
I just feel like, to me, like it's there's a part of looking at streaming and thinking of it as a feature film is like watching athletes that are on steroids. Like there's something different that I can't compare today's current athletes and what they're able to achieve to Babe Ruth, right? The classic, what it means and what defined the era of what the greatest all time was. And that evolution, because we can identify the evolution, it's just not the same. So I love the idea of getting back to the principle of value and because there is a filter in our mind that knows the difference between a film and a TV show. And it's not the duration. It's not if there's commercials in between it. I just watched The Greatest Showman on FX and it had commercials between it. And I still knew it was a film, right? There's still something about it.
There's something theatrical about it. And I'm looking at it now as, because it is very, in its like simplest form, it's a distribution outlet. Streaming is a distribution outlet, and so are theaters. And let the people decide for themselves where and when they want to, or how they want to watch your movies. And there are times, like I am a frequent moviegoer. I love going to the movies, but I also have a toddler, and it costs a lot of money to get a babysitter to cover her that night. And then for my husband and I to go out to dinner, go to this movie, like it's a big thing. Whereas my husband and I, sometimes we just want to pay for the convenience, and that's what it is. It's a convenience thing.
Oh,
It's almost like DoorDash and Postmates and restaurants. I'm not going to stop going to restaurants. I love going to restaurants. But sometimes I don't want to cook, and sometimes I want a good meal, and I'm going to order Postmates because it's convenient. Now, the difference between those two is that the restaurant still makes money off of a DoorDash or a Postmates because it's still ordering from the restaurant. The theaters aren't making money. So let's look at that and say, how do we give the theaters a cut of this if there's some version to involve them into streaming? How do we partner, right?
By the way, you just took the greatest twist, right? Like you just found the greatest twist. It's almost like Tower Records missing the MP3 evolution. The studios did the distribution instead of the theaters recognizing the need and being the Netflix of the next generation. They missed the boat. They're the guys that are trying to sell buggy whips to cars that people that own cars. Like, it doesn't work.
And we're getting too caught up on protecting the theatrical experience that in order to protect it, in order to really protect it, we have to really understand what it is that the theatrical model offers. It's just a distribution outlet. It is literally a place where you can see the movie. Now, it's a wonderful place. I'm not trying to diminish it because, again, I love the movies. And there is nothing like sitting in a movie theater with all of these people and you're sharing this experience on a gigantic screen. It's magical, and everyone should have that. And I strongly believe that that is not going to go away, but we need to find a way to evolve and make them part of like, I don't think that streaming and theatrical should be at odds. I think we should find a way to make them work together. Well, Disney actually has done very successfully.
And we, Keith, you and I kind of almost in one of our first episodes pulled out the idea that the Paramount decree was going away, with this thought of like, maybe that's the very first indicator that the exhibition experience is going to be very different. If the studios can now start owning the theaters it might be a very different experience, or the hope for or understanding the need for that different experience.
Yeah, I think Robin is correct in that I'm not saying we have to protect the theatrical model in terms of like the windows and all that kind of stuff, but I do think there needs to be a way to work together. And I think one of the things I've always said is a lot of other, like the Netflixes and the Apples and the Facebooks and the GAFAs of the world, if you will, have always given the content where the consumer wants it, when they want it, and how they want it. Whereas the film industry was always saying, no, you're going to see it when I tell you, and where I tell you, and how I tell you. And that was not where sort of the mood of the culture was shifting. It was shifting to the point where the consumer's in control. And I think you're right. I think the DoorDash Postmates is a great analogy. Restaurants still survive because they get a cut. And I think, like, when you look at what Universal's doing, and what Jeff Shell and Donna Langley are doing there now, sort of they're working with the exhibitors to try to figure out a way to make this work. They recognize that theatrical is an important part of the process, but it's not the end all be all. Like, they started to say, like, experimenting. Okay, well, we'll give it 17 days, and if it doesn't make a certain benchmark, then we're going to move it over to a Peacock, but we'll give you a cut of whatever it makes. And we'll give you a certain cut of, whatever the formula is. But that's one way to do it. And I think Warner Media just went the extreme opposite direction and said, nah, we're just going to move everything over here and ignore the theatrical experience altogether. And I think that's the opposite extreme. And I do think,
to me, what Warner did is that what's so interesting about that is, like, it's almost like they ignored the relationship. The relationship of the entire industry, of the creators, the distributors, the studio themselves. It's almost like they were too disruptive and too DoorDashy, and forgot that there was actually there's a whole supply chain kind of feeding it all. Robin, I see your face. You're agreeing with that somewhat. You work with talent. Like, what's the feeling of this move that Warner Brothers did? Because that's obviously a big dig on those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to speak very frank. Like, you know, the way that this was handled lacked any diplomacy or class or recognition to the filmmakers and the partners. And there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of people working on these movies behind the scenes, and not just for weeks or months, but years. Like a lot of these movies are in the works for years, and they're babies, and they are precious to the people who are creating them. And we need to treat those people and those creators with respect. They deserve it. And they're the reason why, content is everything. Creative is like the creative itself is what brings people to the movies. It's not the distribution outlet, right? So these people are so invested in this, and for them to find out that their projects have been moved to streaming, which again, there's two separate things. I was talking about the value of a project earlier, and it shouldn't be seen like we're changing that perception on streaming versus theatrical. But here's the difference in this. Every single one of those films was agreed upon to be a theatrical release, and money was spent, and time was spent, and effort was spent with the expectation of it going in that direction. And to come in and handle the relationships the way that they did was so damaging to the legacy of Warner Brothers in general, because AT&T comes in and decides, and for them, it's about their bottom line. They're using these pieces of art to elevate their service, and that's it. And it was so poorly handled. Look, I understand why these decisions are being made in a COVID era. I understand that there's opportunity there. And I understand that some of those movies probably would perform better on streaming, but not all of them. And they've also—
And they didn't tell, it's not like they were upfront about it. Everyone else had to find out in the news. Yeah, it's
it
horrible.
Destroys decades of trust. And also it potentially destroys the future of any one of those movies to be a franchise, because now you have upset the very people that are invested in making it, that they don't trust you anymore. And they don't know where to go with this project. Should there be a franchise? I mean, I look at a movie like Dune. Dune is, there's so much opportunity with that film. And to be like, it's a very inaccessible project when you think about, like, that's the biggest problem. That's his biggest challenge from a marketing standpoint, is accessibility, in terms of like, how big is your audience? Because Dune is a very niche project that has a very specific audience.
Yeah.
However, like, if it's done correctly and if it's done right, and if you can come in and build the world, like, it could be the next Avatar. Like, it could be. But the way that this was handled, it upsets every single person that has put years into building this world. And I'm very upset that—
to me, the biggest harm is, anybody trying to compete with the Marvel universe. And the only real breakthrough that anyone's had is Wonder Woman, and to be able to really kind of put pressure on that relationship and not handle that well. What a sabotage of really the best asset they've made in the superhero universe. Very unfortunate. Keith, you were saying earlier just the idea of like what AT&T's agenda might be in doing this. Do they not care? Do you think it's just about the bottom line? Or is AT&T going to try to step up versus a Comcast and like these other bigger players that are greater than Amazon's and Netflix that are focusing, but the AT&Ts and Comcast of the world are doing something different?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is there's just sort of an I don't want to— ignorance is probably the wrong word, but that may be closer to the mark in terms of what goes into putting together these projects. I think Robin nailed it. These are acts of love. I've sat in, was working in film development, I've sat in meetings, and these creators, these writers, directors, they feel this project because they eat, sleep, and breathe it for so many years. It's their baby that they've nursed from the ground up. And the amount of people that put the effort and time into creating all these beautiful works of art, films like Dune. And it's such an important part of the process. And I think AT&T is just sort of like, they're not involved in it. Unless you actually sit there and work and you understand the blood, sweat, and tears. I know, Tim, you made a comment earlier about how it just seems like it's the greatest job ever and it's fun. It is fun. There's a lot of aspects of working in the industry that are fun, but it's also the reason that it is such a stressful industry is because so many people are passionate about what they're working on and they want it to succeed. And everybody wants their movies to open. Everybody wants their movies to win. And I don't think unless you're in it in the day-to-day and you understand that, you have a grasp on what it takes to get these films together and put them out. So I think that was somewhat missing. And I applaud, like I said last week, I think this could either go brilliantly or it could go horribly wrong. I in a lot of ways, I applaud Jason Kilar for his sort of boldness, but because he doesn't come from the industry, he didn't work in it. He was never an assistant sitting on a desk, listening to the conversations and the decisions that have to be made on a split. Yeah. And a split and the millions of dollars that are on the line and every minute of delay and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think there's an understanding. And I think that's where a little bit of the disconnect was. And I think AT&T and the board and John Stankey recognized, despite their public pronunciations to the contrary, HBOMax launch was a failure. I mean, yeah. it's not a total disaster. I mean, they're increasing subs, but if you look at Disney Plus, what Disney Plus has done, how Peacock is sort of performing, they've got a better awareness with Peacock than HBOMax does. Ultimately, HBOMax was a bit of a bust. And I think they were like, we need to do something drastic to save this. And I think, and because they put so much into the future of HBOMax, I think that's ultimately where the decision-making came from. And
it would be so interesting if the real disruption that we see in 2021, because I'd love to get you guys' thought of like what's going to happen, but that Warner Brothers is totally like the change that would take place in Warner Brothers, because that might be one of the first players that we see in the studio business that really has like the greatest hit, let's say the traditional film industry in the greatest hit. And really what that might be to the dynamic shifts, because if AT&T really just sees it as just a playing field, or not even a playing field, just an asset that they own, but not really taking care of it from that creative field, will the creators want to move on and do something different? What thoughts do you guys have just moving forward, 2021? What do you think we're going to see in changing in that way? Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to add to your note, and this is something that I, again, just taking a step back and looking at it holistically, the thing that HBOMax failed to do, and I think there's a lot that they failed to do. The first one is, we already know HBO is a brand. I understand why they wanted to launch it as HBOMax, because it's an existing brand and they were trying to build off of fanship that they already had. But HBO in general is a brand that means quality, and it's very specific, and you think of like what it's branded towards in the same way that Disney is branded. We know what that means. But when you start using that to put every single piece of content on, you've actually hurt your brand.
Totally.
And so someone who, I'm looking at it as these people coming from AT&T, and not to diminish them as business executives, they're brilliant people. And they've gotten to where they are because they've made a lot of great business decisions. I just happen to think that this is not one of them. Like, I probably would have looked at it as, I probably would have called it Warner Brothers and built from there. And I think the number
Warner
one,
Plus.
whatever, but you can't take something, it was square peg round hole. And as an entertainment company, you exist solely to entertain people.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to invest in creativity. And what they've done, for lack of a better way of saying it, is Disney uses Disney Plus to build franchises, right? Mandalorian, they bring in Ahsoka Tano, and now Ahsoka Tano is getting her own streaming show. So is Boba Fett. Like, they're using it to build franchises to eventually, potentially even get to the movie screen.
Yeah.
HBOMax is using theirs to kill potential franchises.
Well, what's so funny is if you think about it, I mean, no HBO film has ever been nominated for an Oscar. So
No.
they take Oscar a platform, Warner Brothers Studios and Warner Brothers Distribution, and they move it on to really direct to video. And direct to video is not ever been something that's out there. And it'd be like Disney saying, "Hey, we're going to move all of our feature film releases to ABC Plus."
Right.
Or ABC Max, right? That's what it would be like. It just doesn't match.
Stuff that I agree. Like, this is the kind of stuff where, and this is what HBO and Warner and AT&T didn't invest in, which was they should have brought on franchise managers from the beginning. People who are going to come in and say, look at this from a long-term 5 to 10 year outlook of what each one of these projects could potentially do. Now, there's a lot of those movies that are on the slate for 2021 that are individual movies that you could cherry pick and put on streaming, and that works. That makes sense for the movie. But a movie like Dune or a movie like Godzilla, like, you take those movies that are already existing franchises, you have to look at the long-term plans for what that is. Otherwise, you have left billions of dollars on the table potentially by doing the impulsive move that they did. And it's just, Disney gets that. That's why Disney is who Disney is. That's why Disney Plus, they invested in it slowly. They already had a gigantic library to throw on there to begin with. And then they've been slowly building and throwing other stuff on. They fought to put Mulan. They didn't want to put Mulan on the streaming service. They wanted to protect its theatrical value. But then, once you get, the international part of it, and then the piracy potential issues, like, there's a lot that goes into those decisions. And I get why those decisions get made.
Yeah. It's just so unfortunate, let's say. And I think in a relationship-based world that we're in, on the creative field, I love the idea that you're saying, or the word that you use is trust. Really, when you produce something, you're taking someone else's idea and getting it to screen. And there's a lot of arguments and a lot of discussions and too many creative hours put into certain aspects that get completely lost. And to downplay it or look like you've downplayed it and not considered that, very harmful to that relationship. It's gonna be interesting. It'd be interesting to see which of the more monopolies are out there, the Amazons and Netflixes, are going to take advantage of this and create some disruption in the field because of this shift that's going to take place.
Yeah.
Hey, Keith, I have to say, like, we're running. I think this is our last episode of the year, right?
It is.
I don't know if we're going to do something on Christmas Eve. Or would it be Christmas? Yeah, Christmas Eve. Would it be Christmas Day next week?
Christmas Day. I'm not doing this on Christmas Day, Tim. Sorry.
I'm not doing it on Christmas Day. And New Year's Day, I'm going to say we're probably not going to.
No, we're going to be back in 2021. Yeah. This is
2021. We'll do it right. We'll get some rest for the next week and a half or so. And who knows what's going to blow up in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, the next show, our first show in 2021 will probably have to be like 3 hours to cover everything that happens.
I will bet Wonder Woman will be part of that discussion.
Oh, yeah. For sure. I'm going to watch it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm bummed that I can't watch it in a theater.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly going to watch it.
And I mean, theaters open in Utah, by the way. So maybe we should all just take a trip out to Utah.
Let's get a plane and go to Utah.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Business trip.
I wear a mask.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap things up. I am so thankful for the two of you. This idea of being able to talk to both of you and your knowledge and understanding of what's going on in the industry, we're very lucky to have you in our community and sharing this kind of behind the scenes aspects of what it's like to work in this industry and the real comings and goings are going on. I believe it's helpful for me and it's helpful for the people that are watching just to gain that understanding and pick your brain behind it. So thankful for the two of you. I want to wish you both a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Just enjoy the time.
Merry Christmas.
That's right.
Here, I have my Christmas bulldog mug.
There you go. I love it.
I have no Christmas thing. Keith looks like he's at a Christmas vacation. Right? It's like a straight Chevy Chase right there. Going on.
Chevy Chase inspired.
Yeah.
Hallelujah, holy shit. Where's the Tylenol? Right?
Yeah. That's a classic.
That pretty much describes the year right there.
Oh my gosh. I've asked this maybe I'm going to stretch this just 2 more minutes, but I've asked this to all my clients this week, so I'd be curious what you guys are thinking to wrap this thing up. Best Christmas movie. What's an all-time favorite or a family must in order to pull it in? And I'll start with, we are an Elf family, without a doubt. We haven't watched it yet because we're not all together. We'll watch it together on Christmas Eve when we're together. So that's the one that were there. And White Christmas is definitely one of the classics that we
I will say, Tim, Netflix now has a how they were made holiday edition.
Oh, I saw that.
Is one.
Yeah, we did that. We watched that one because we watched.
I was actually at New Line when we made that movie, so it's
that's
cool
fun.
to be there when that.
All right, so what's your film there, Keith?
I would probably have to say, obviously, Christmas Vacation, given this. But another one that I love is Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Oh yeah,
love
that's
that
fun.
movie.
Yeah.
Love that movie. So many classic lines in that movie. Oh, it's great.
And how about you, Robin? What's the film?
It's so hard to pick. I would say, Christmas Vacation for us too. It's a family favorite, always has been, and is still now. And I love It's a Wonderful Life. It's so classic.
Oh, good one.
We just saw that with Grandma. Grandma's 93. We sat down with her. It is just
wow.
And this year was funny because when I watched it, I felt like I've never seen it before. There was just something funny, different about it that I was like, oh wow, this is just such a timely movie.
It's a great movie. Yeah,
it's magical. It's classic, timeless, never goes out of style.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
All right. Well, thanks again to both you guys. Love you guys and hope you have a wonderful holiday. I also need to say thank you to Lydia behind the scenes, all the hard work that you do to kind of keep this going and make things happen. Your team at Go Social, and then Curly Joe for kind of transcribing this thing and helping us get this out to video. We're thankful for all of you behind the scenes making it happen. Merry Christmas to everyone, and we'll see you in 2021.